Okay, hello, welcome everyone, and thank you for coming to my session on meeting design and medical meetings. Now, I would like to just to understand who you are. Could you raise your hand if you are working on meeting design to an extent? Okay, you three, okay, not bad. And how many of you are working on medical meetings? Okay, and between you, raise your hand if you are working on association meetings for medical associations. Okay, one, and the rest, I suppose, for pharma meetings, like for pharmaceutical companies or medical devices. Okay, right. So my name is Rosa Garriga Mora, and I work for Kenneth Group, which is a PCO. It's a professional congress organizer who only do medical and scientific events for associations. So we work for the European Society for Regional Anesthesia, the World Federation of Neurology, etc. Okay, so I'm mostly going to focus on association meetings because I'm not working on pharma meetings, for example, but I suppose that some of the content is also going to be interesting for you, right? Okay, so I'm going to define very quickly what is meeting design. If this was 10 years ago, I would have spent much more time, but I assume now it's almost 2020, and I think most people know what meeting design is. But basically, what a meeting designer does is working on the content and the format of an event to meet its goals. Okay? And I haven't studied medicine. I don't know anything about science or etc. So I don't work on the scientific content. But I work on how that content is delivered. What's the best way to deliver that content? Yeah, okay. I thought someone was talking to me, but and what's the process? Very easily, at least this is the way I work. We start by doing some research and identifying the event objectives, the Congress objectives. Then we work on the design of the event. I prepare a proposal with some ideas. I show it to the client. We go back and forth. And then when we have a final proposal, we work on the implementation and the execution of the meeting design plan. And then at the end, we measure the outcomes. We measure how it went. So here I'm going to speak about, today, I'm going to speak about why are medical meetings special and why meeting design is different for medical meetings versus corporate meetings. Before I was working for Kenneth, I was on my own. I was a freelance, and I was working for different corporate events, pharmaceutical companies. IBTM was one of my first clients as well. So I've seen lots of differences. It's been a long process to adapt to medical association meetings, and I want to focus on those differences today. So I'm going to list here some of what I call the medical meetings idiosyncrasies. Those things, and I don't mean this in a negative way, just things that make medical meetings different. And first of all, of course, the event owner. As I said, we work with association meetings, so the event owner is always a medical association. Okay, that could be international, European, also national or regional. And always you have a board of directors and different committees. They are always doctors, right? Doctors, scientists, which means that they have their full-time jobs at the hospital. They are very busy people. So it's very hard to get access to them. I wish to do a proper meeting design process, I wish that we had, for example, half a day sitting with them in an office, just discussing the event objectives. But reality is that that's almost never possible. Sometimes we have a teleconference call at midnight with doctors from Australia to the US, and in half an hour, I have to find out the event objectives. So that's how it usually works. Also, usually they are temporary, right? By the way, here I'm not talking about the staff. You know, sometimes associations, especially the bigger ones, they have an office, an executive office with an executive director, some staff. I'm not going to focus on those because usually they have their own meeting planners and meeting designers, right? So the doctors, they are there only for some time, sometimes a few years, sometimes a couple of years, which means that if they are risk averse, they would prefer not to make too many changes, you know, because they say, oh, you know, I'm here just for 2 years. What I want to do is maybe increase the revenue, increase the number of delegates, and that's it. I'm not going to change the formats or include, I don't know, technologies, etc. Although sometimes that's a good thing, because we also have clients who say, well, you know, clients that are very ambitious, and they say, I think meeting design is very important. I want to leave my mark. I want to make a huge change in this Congress before I leave. So sometimes that's positive. Another thing as well, another characteristic, is that they are not expert in meetings. They go to many conferences because, you know, they are invited to many conferences, but they don't know what it takes to put together a meeting. So sometimes maybe they have unrealistic expectations. Also, I find most of them are not that interested in meeting design per se. They are mostly interested in the scientific content. So they want to speak about the topics, the speakers, etc. Although, as I said before, there are a few of them who really want to work on meeting design. And also, every time more and more, we see that they include young committees. So they include the younger doctors and scientists so that they can have their own space at the Congress, and sometimes they can have some influence in the design. And that's good, because usually they are more open-minded. And then I would also say that they are very professional, very smart. So even though they don't know much about meetings, they quickly understand everything, right? When you tell them about meeting design, also because many of them are professors, so they know how people learn. They know the importance of making the audience be active. So they are open to these ideas. And lastly, I would say that in my experience in corporate meetings, sometimes you find that they don't have clear objectives, besides saying, you know, we do this annual meeting because every time we've done it, you know, this way, and that's it. Here, they are very focused on objectives, on educational objectives. They know, everyone that goes to a medical congress, they know that they go there for the education, because they need that knowledge for their day-to-day jobs. Right? They are very focused on the healthcare outcomes. So that's also good for us. OK, next one, the faculty. OK, this is also very different you know, in a medical meeting versus other types of meetings, because you have huge faculty. Typically, we have 3-day, 4-day congresses with more than 100 speakers. Sometimes they just speak for 10 minutes, right? But it's a huge list of speakers who are not professional speakers, which means that they don't necessarily have good communication skills. They just have a good CV. And also, they are not getting paid to speak. Sometimes they even have to pay for their registration fee, for the like flight tickets to get there, hotel, etc. Which means that it's hard to ask them a lot. Like if you want to, let's say, if you want to change the session format completely, it's hard for them to do it because they are very busy as well, and they are not professional speakers. So their time is very limited. And same for the moderators, right? We almost never have professional moderators. We always have what they, you know, medical meetings, they call them session chairmen. So usually it's just doctors doing the job of a moderator, but without being really professional. They don't know much how to do it. And again, they are very time poor. Usually they just show up at the session 5 minutes before the session starts, and that's when they meet the speaker for the first time. So there is hardly any planning and preparation in advance. OK. Also, sorry, I think I went. Yeah, that slide. I want to stay here. The content, of course, is very scientific, which also makes it hard for me to understand, right? Sometimes I've been working as a meeting designer for corporate meetings, for conferences on meeting planning, and that was much easier for me to get inspired, to come up with ideas, because I understand the content. But in this case, I have to work very close with the scientific committee to be able to design session formats, etc. And again, they don't have much time to spend with me. Also, content sometimes is very dry. You know, if you go to a session on meeting design, they tell you presentation should be full of stories, colorful images. Maybe you should play with emotions. But how do you do that with this content? It's just not easy, right? And also, you have the compliance thing. There are many things that you cannot do because of compliance. But the good thing is that most of these medical meetings, they have the CME accreditation, so credits for medical education, which means that they have to be focused on objectives again, and they get measured. And also, even a criteria for being accredited is that you have to include interactive sessions and workshops. So that's good. Also, most of the times you have a limited budget. You know, in most associations, unless a really big one like, I don't know, the European Society of Cardiology, most of the associations have very low budgets, which means that you cannot hire professional master of ceremonies, you cannot get by, I don't know, technologies or apps that are interesting. Even the venues, they tend to be small. Like, say that you want to do maybe round tables, like cabaret style. When you have a session with hundreds of delegates, you cannot do that. It has to be always theater style. So that puts a lot of limitations on what you can do. And finally, you have high competition, right? You have a lot of competition in most cases. And like in corporate meetings, let's say internal meetings, when there is no competition, your staff has to go to the meeting, right? In this case, you have a lot of competition, but that's good, because usually that drives innovation and it pushes people to change. So what do you think of this? What do you think of what I've just told you? Do you agree with them? Are you missing any idiosyncrasies from medical meetings? Would anyone yeah? I think we have a microphone. He's very kind, and he's going to help me. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I was just wondering about the limited budget.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they have a limited budget? You hear stories about sponsorships, pharmaceutical companies, and so on. So that kind of triggered me.
Right. It's true that they do get revenue more or less from sponsors, exhibitors, and also the registration fees from delegates. But at least in my experience, it's still not enough, let's say. I mean, it's enough for the basics, for the venue. I mean, it's enough to make the meeting happen. But it's not enough to go crazy. Like, even to have a nice meal, that's even difficult many times. So meeting design is like here on the priority list. Yeah, it's not the case in most meetings, but I think more and more, this is what we are seeing. Yeah, I don't know, does anyone else have a different experience? Maybe it's just my clients who have low budgets. No? Okay. Would anyone else like to comment on this or say something? Maybe those of you who are working on pharma meetings, do they resonate with you?
Sorry,
yeah.
I didn't quite understand the high competition. You mean between congresses? You mean there are
yes.
so many
competing
about
congresses.
The same theme?
Exactly.
Or you mean about the PCOs or?
No, I mean the first thing, yes. Like, for example, let's say cardiology. I don't know, but I'm sure there are many meetings on a national level, on a regional level, international level. So that's what I meant, yeah. Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Any comments or? Okay, let's move on. Thank you so much. So I'm going to speak about, I guess you would be interested in hearing about tools and techniques that are suitable for medical meetings. Here I'm just going to speak about what I'm using today, most of the times. And then I'll show you case studies so you can see how it's applied in real life. So I've divided the tools and techniques in 3 different categories. The first one is techniques to create an effective learning environment, which to me, this is almost like a definition for meeting design. Everything we do is so that people will learn more. Okay. One is to create dynamic session and presentation formats, such as interviews, campfires, pro-con debates, which you see a lot in medical meetings, talk shows. We also do speaker and moderator coaching, which is limited. As I've told you, we have 100 speakers, so we don't have the capacity to work with all of them. So what I do is I focus on a few sessions, maybe because of the topic or because of it's more interesting, or maybe it's a keynote session. So I just focus on a few. And then sometimes I also work with the moderators, or even we hire a professional master of ceremonies, like the one you see in the photo. He's from Masters in Moderation, which is a network of amazing professional MCs. I see some of you are nodding. So he came to do the opening session of, it was the European Society for Regional Anesthesia. And he's done it 3 times, I think, now, yeah. He's done a really good job. But the problem is, of course, that was the opening session because the content was not that scientific. But I would be very hard-pressed to ask him to moderate another session because the content is so scientific that you really need someone who's a subject matter expert, right? And that comes the issue. Also, I work a lot on creating session scripts. So if I have the chance, I will speak with the speakers and the moderators over a phone call. If not, I just create a session script and I send it to them, but I prepare it for them usually. And then stage and room design, which is all about furniture, lighting on the stage and the room. And I'm going to show you now some case studies. So this is an event that our German office did. It was called EndoClub North, and basically this conference, it's all about showing live surgery. Sorry for the photo. It's not very pleasant to look at, but there is just one of these, I promise. So what they wanted to show, they show live surgery all the time. So we suggested to them, why don't you use this huge screen, very high definition, it was a LED screen, and so you could see, of course, the quality with very good, the image with very good quality, but also you can have different content, right? It's not here, like here with a projector that you can only show one feed, but here you have lots of content. So we had the image from the live surgery here, right? And then here you have the surgeon doing this live, and then here you have the speaker. And so we thought it would be nice to have some beanbags here for people to relax. And yeah, people liked it a lot, so it was successful. This is not one of our clients, but I always like to speak about what the European Society of Cardiology is doing because I think they are very innovative. And among many other things, they are moving away from dark rooms, and I'll show you why now. They are also increasing the number of open session rooms, which is what you see here on the right side. So it's basically like here, right? We are at the exhibition floor, and instead of having this session in a meeting room, they just put this wall, and this is basically same thing. And they also have more informal session formats and seats. And why are they moving away from dark rooms? So this is a scientific study that they did, and they found that natural daylight is best for boosting mood and energy. So most of the times in medical meetings that's not possible, again, because you have to use these huge convention centers, and usually they don't have any natural daylight. But if you can, then use it. And I wanted to show you this other interesting study where they found that high ceilings stimulate the senses and help create positive feelings. They found that actually the lower the ceiling is, the quicker that people want to leave the room. Isn't that crazy? So this is a good size. So, moving on, another case study. I was speaking about session formats, right, and how to make them dynamic and hands-on. This is a congress called World Hospital at Home, which was organized by Kenneth for the first time this year. And this congress is basically, it's about, when some patients don't need to be at the hospital, but they still need care from a doctor almost on a daily basis. So they keep the patients at home, and then a nurse goes there every day, and a doctor maybe every couple of days. So this congress was about this, and we thought it would be fun. It was international, so we had people coming to Madrid. Madrid was the location, but we had people coming from the US, from Taiwan, from the Philippines, and we thought it would be a powerful experience to take them to patients' homes. So the photo here on the left is in a hospital. First, we took them to a local hospital, and then they went with a doctor and a nurse to the patient's home. And I'm sure they will remember for many years, this lady coming from Philippines, going to the house of this old Spanish lady and seeing how she's being treated. It was really good experience and very educational, right, which is what we are looking for. And then on the other side, this photo is from a campfire session. So, for example, this guy here with the glasses, he was speaking, but I think he had only like 15 minutes. So then we gave him, during the exhibition, during the coffee break time, we gave him a space at the campfire so that people that wanted to go deeper into his topic, they could. And it was very successful, as you can see. So I guess you can imagine this is not something that's outstanding, but the reality of medical meetings most of the times is this is what you can do. Okay, next one, techniques to foster delegate involvement, to make the audience be more engaged and active. We have polling, Warclouds, quizzes. We use Slido a lot. We have also hands-on activities, like workshops, and also games. For example, this photo is from the World Federation of Neurology. Every year they have a very successful game. So it's an international event with people from many different countries. So they compete, Australia versus Spain versus Rwanda. They compete between them. All the questions are related to the content from the conference. And at the end, someone wins, and they are very happy. This is a congress that it's really, really interesting. It's from an association called CHEST. It's from the US, but they are doing events all over the world. And in this case, they do have an internal team that's quite big. I think they are around 15 people who spend all year creating games with the scientific content. So it's amazing. I don't have more photos, unfortunately, but they have here they have lots of arcade games. Here as well. They have also lots of hands-on workshops. They do all sorts of things, and lots of simulations as well. So this is a great example of very educational content, but also fun. And this is just an example of Warcloud. I don't know if there was a video here. Anyway, this is a conference that we did in Latin America where they had never used basically an audience response system. And here we sold them the idea of using these Warclouds before doing a panel discussion, right? So before they start the panel discussion, the session moderator would say, now, what do you think of this? Or what comes to your mind when you think about this? And the audience would send the keywords through their phones, and then the most popular answers would get bigger on the screen. And that was the starting point of the panel discussion. So it was a great way to include the audience and make the discussion more relevant for them. This is another congress we did in September, a few months ago in Israel. it was about medical cannabis. And also, for the first time, we used this. So on the left, sorry, you see this lady with these VR glasses. They have like a mindfulness meditation app inside, so people could put them on just for 10 minutes with music as well. So you were like isolated from the conference, and it made you more relaxed and focused. And then here, this is also something we did. For the first time, we used augmented reality for a presentation. So he's the chairman of this Congress, and he was doing some polling with an app, but instead of showing the usual polling screen, we did, well, I didn't do it, the technician did. I don't know how they did it, but they created like an augmented reality thing. So it looked like the results and the countdown. This is the countdown. It was coming from the screen. It looked much better on live. Right, and then the last category, techniques to create networking opportunities. Okay, so we have facilitated networking formats, and this is very important. I'm sure you know, everyone that goes to a congress, they just want to meet also like-minded people. Maybe they want to meet a professor who they can partner with. So we try, especially in the large congresses, we try to create what we call facilitated networking formats, maybe speed dating sessions between young and senior doctors. Sometimes we have a program for those that go to the Congress for the first time, which is a lot. I find this statistic amazing, but more than 50% of people who go to a medical Congress, it's the first time, every time. It's every year, and every year is like that. So you have a lot of first-timers. We also have, sometimes we have an event app with networking features where they can set up a one-on-one meeting, and I'll show you now the one we are using. And we've also lately used some customized badges and icebreakers. Okay, so this is a conference we did as well this year in Israel. The guy you see there, he's a professional moderator. We were able to hire him. He's actually a BBC journalist, and he did an amazing job. And the screenshot, this is the app that we were using for networking. They are very strong on networking. And what we did was, so when people would register for the event, they would get a list of questions. For example, what are you working on? Like, which field are you working on? Or what are you interested in? And they could select from a list of categories. And then we pull that information and we upload it to the app, and then they could get matched up. So, for example, if me and Mireia, we have a lot in common, the app would say, hey, you should meet Mireia because you have a lot in common. And then we could chat as if it was WhatsApp. And we also had a meeting area with tables, with numbers and a schedule. So in the app, we could schedule a meeting on that table, etc. And I think the app also learns your activity. So for example, if you are bookmarking the sessions you are going to attend, it's also going to suggest people that are going to attend the same sessions as you. So it's quite cool. I know there are very sophisticated event apps out there. This one is very affordable. So that's one of the reasons why we chose them. But there are many options, of course. Yes. Do you want to, okay, I don't want to make publicity, but do you want the name? Yeah, well, it's Swapcard. Yeah, I don't think they have a stand here. It's from Paris. They are French. Okay, if you want more details, I can give it to you later. This is another conference on microbiomes, the stuff, the bacteria that's on our bodies. And here what we wanted to do is to create some icebreakers, fun icebreakers for people to talk. And so we came up with these. These were button badges, so people could wear them here or here. And I don't really understand them because, again, I'm not a doctor, but apparently they were very funny for them. So, yeah. And then the last case study I have is from ESRA, the European Society of Regional Anesthesia, where every year we have this very successful networking session, which is around lunchtime. So usually people have lunch, it's a standing up lunch in the middle of the exhibition. But if you pay a little extra, then you can have a seated lunch. And I think at every table there is someone like a KOL, someone who is well-known. So every year is sold out, this session, and I think it's very good for networking. And also for the first time we tried this yoga, which I must say wasn't that well attended. I think we're hoping for more people, but yeah, those that participated were very happy. And I'm going to show you now a little video. I've told you before that we have lots of speakers in our congresses, right? More than 100 times hundreds, because we do many congresses a year. So we don't have the capacity to work with most of them. And we're always thinking how to streamline processes. We already have a speaker portal where we collect their CVs, their presentations, etc. But for the meeting design, for working on session formats or their presentations, it's very hard. So we've been looking for ways on how to do that. And for now, one of the things we've done is to create a video that helps them to prepare their presentation. It's short because we know their attention span is very, very short. But we wanted to make a video focused on scientific medical presentations because it's very different from watching, I don't know, a video from TED. Yeah, which is amazing, but it's not relevant for our speakers. So we created this video from scratch.
Hey, my name is Professor Green, and I'm a regular speaker at medical congresses. In this video, I'll show you how I prepare for my presentations. I always follow 4 steps. 1. Planning the content. 2. Designing effective slides. 3. Preparing the talk. And 4. Making it an interactive presentation. Let's go through each step. First of all, you have to find out what your audience wants or needs to know about the topic you're presenting. To find out, ask the Congress's scientific committee what's the audience level of expertise and what issues may be on their mind. Once you know the content you have to cover, create an outline of your talk. Begin with a compelling opening, for example, a great anecdote, and end with a strong closing that includes a summary. People will only remember a few points, so it's best to focus on a couple of take-home messages. Step 2. Remember that a slide is not your lecture notes, so make sure to follow these guidelines. No more than 7 lines per slide. No more than 7 words per line. Choose a font from the sans serif family, and never use smaller than 28-point size font to ensure your slides are readable from the back of the room. You also have to think about colors. The best are blue, black, and white if you are using a dark background. And make sure to include cases and pictures to illustrate your key points. Your audience will be more likely to pay attention if you tell them stories. Step 3. The main thing to remember is that you should talk to the audience, not to the slides. Rehearse and learn the talk well enough that you don't have to read. Go early to the room and check the layout, the stage, the lighting. Visualize yourself giving the presentation there. Starting strong will make you relaxed and your audience engaged. To connect with the audience, smile. Show enthusiasm by moving your arms. Make eye contact with them and get out from behind the podium. The last step is making your presentation more interactive. As a rule of thumb, dedicate 20% of your allotted time to audience discussion. So, next time you're preparing to speak at a congress, make sure you go through this checklist. Did you find out more about the audience? Create a script for your talk? Rehearse enough? Plan for enough audience discussion? Good luck! Brought to you by Kennis Group. www.kennis.com.
Okay. Yes. So, yeah, I guess most of the tips are quite common sense, but I'm amazed at how still most of our speakers don't follow them. So hopefully this will change soon. And yeah, I forgot to say before that after I finish in a few slides my talk, you can send questions. You can send them already now to slido.com. If you go there, you use you enter the code IBTM world, and then the questions will be shown here. Okay. Okay, done. Thank you. So, what did you think of all of these ideas that I've shown you? Do you have experience doing other things? Yeah. Any comments? Mireia, I'll get the microphone. Yeah. Oh, I can do it. Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Rosa. I think it's not very common for a PCO to have an internal meeting architect.
No.
Does it mean that something is changing in this sector, and why?
Right. Well, it's actually changing. As far as I know, and maybe I'm mistaken, but as far as I know, Kenneth was the first PCO to hire a meeting designer 4 years ago. That's when I started, even though they were already doing something before me. But I think since last year or 2 years ago, MCI also has a few people working on it. I think they've created like a special division called MCI Experience, something like that. And also AIM Group, they've hired Annalisa, what's her surname? Well, she used to be the executive director at ISOT, which is a big medical association, and now she's working at AIM Group just on innovation and meeting design. So I think it is changing. Yeah. Why? I think because of the times. Yes. One thing is generations, competition. As I've told you, there is more and more competition, less money, so congresses, they are forced to change. And yeah, I think it's just keeping up with the times. Yes. Yes?
I have a question about the yoga and the games stuff. That was great. I think it's a really good idea. But what about pharma industria? Is it allowed to do it, taking into account the codes and everything?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't think we advertised it. Yeah, we didn't. It was quite a last-minute thing, and it was not on the website. But then on site, and it was a challenge, and I think that's partly why not many people showed up. So that's that's not nice. But I think when you are on site, it's fine. Like, I think you would be very unlucky if they come and they'll tell you something. Yeah. The games, yeah, that's okay because they are very educational. If you were playing, you wouldn't understand nothing because it's for doctors. Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay. Well, the Q&A time is later actually. So, okay. Thank you. Right. So just to finish up, I'm going to give you some tips based on my experience. Firstly, take one step at a time when working with medical associations because, as I've mentioned, they tend to be a bit conservative, risk-averse. So I would say it's better to change maybe just a couple of things. At one congress, make sure that it works really well and everyone is, confident and happy, and then you can keep changing more and more. Then, very important, it's to think about your audience, right? And I didn't mention this, but I always, when I work on a congress, I always make a very huge list of who is our audience, what are the different categories of participants, because we may have nurses, we may have scientists, academics, etc. And then also, are they coming from different countries? Are they from different generations? And then we look at their educational needs. Why are they coming to this congress? What are they hoping to take out from it? And even if I have time, I speak to the audience. So sometimes I would go to the congress and make informal interviews or with the surveys, and that's very helpful for me to understand where are they coming from and what I can include, because to me, half of the job is getting the audience on board. Like, you can think about session format that's amazing in your head, but then no one gets it or they don't feel comfortable. So you always have to think about who your audience is and tailor the design to them. Okay, so always very important. Yeah, everything basically, all of these ideas that I suggest, I never go with the same list to every client, never. Everything that I suggest to a client, it's because it's linked to their objectives and also to the audience. Okay, so it's always very personalized to their needs. Okay, which is my next tip. And bonus tip. So, because our clients are scientists, I like also to show that I've read some science, and you would be amazed. There are actually quite a few scientific studies on the effectiveness of doing meeting design. For example, this is a meta study actually. So it's a study of different scientific studies of the impact of basically they compared lecture type of sessions versus interactive workshops type of sessions. And they found that the first ones are much more effective in terms of people learning more and changing their behavior when they go back to their jobs. So I always like to show these studies in case they don't believe me. So this is very useful. Okay, so thank you so much for listening. This is my email if you want to get in touch. I think the slides will be available somewhere. And now if you have questions, we can see on a slide if there are any, or you can also use a microphone. There is one? Okay, oh, sorry, I was just watching here. So, thank you. How long did it take to create it? Did you get any feedback on it? Okay, so it was quite fast. This is a bonus tip, very professional tip. We used Fiverr, which is this website that's got basically a lot of freelancers from all over the world. They are there, and you just find what you're looking for. And we work with this guy from Pakistan that we had already worked with, so he knew he was good, and he was amazing. He created the video, I think the first draft, he created it in just 1 week or 10 days, and then it took maybe a couple of weeks for him to edit, because we had a lot of comments, but if you have a very clear idea on what you want, and you send him a script, then it's very fast, I would say 2 weeks, and very cheap actually as well. Yeah, so it's a website called Fiverr, so it's F for France, I for Italy, V for Valencia, E for England, and then double R for Rosa. Fiverr.com. Really good, yes. And then feedback. We're implementing it now, so what we're going to do for now is to include it on the Congress websites, because the Congress website, there is always a tab for speakers with resources, like they have their slides, like a slide template and some other useful information. So we're going to add it there. And I would say it's still early for us to see. Let's see. I hope it's going to make some impact. I know it's going to be limited because it's just a video, right? But we're all the time thinking about what else can we do to get speakers to make their presentations a bit more interactive. And yeah. Yes, okay. Any other? Okay, what now? Yes, Frank? Okay. The microphone. Okay.
Thanks. Rosa,
Yes.
you mentioned how important it is to that you know who is your audience and who are the people attending. And I think it is very important that the associations know what the attendees want. Do you think that there is enough communication between associations and the participants?
Well.
Might be the pharma companies, but might be also the doctors directly?
Right.
Because I'm doubting this.
Yeah, that's a big question. I think it depends. I mean, we work with dozens of associations, and some are doing research all the time. Just now, I think today I have a call later with an association that wants to do a big research project. And others, I think they are more focused on like what they think is right and what should be in the Congress, and that's it. So I think it depends. Yeah.
I think you find a lot of congresses that do not change throughout the years. You mentioned Cardio for the ESC. They are super innovative and progressive with a lots of ideas, but a lot of associations are not.
Yes, they are. I always use it as an example because, they are outstanding, but most of them aren't, yes. And I always like to think, this list of the most innovative meetings, right? It's always on these magazines, and you almost never find a medical congress, never, because they are so old-fashioned. But you do have some, like this one, or the one I've shown you, CHEST. This one is also amazing. But we'll see. We're trying to do, just now, for example, we are going to include in some European congresses a track which is only focused on professional education, like executive education. And, for example, sessions on communication skills, because also they have to do lots of presentations at hospitals or at university, or things like leadership or stress, burnout. It's frightening the amount of stress that doctors have nowadays. I think it's one of the most stressful jobs. So we are going to include topics like that, and we're going to do a survey, actually, between the audience in advance to find out which topics are more interesting to them, and then with that, we will create the program. But when it comes to actually, the scientific program, I think it's very hard for the scientific program, the committee, to accept feedback from the outside. Maybe that's my feeling. Yes. Any other questions or comments? Mireia? Yeah. Okay, what time is it? Okay.
Maybe the answer for those people could be an open space, maybe to discuss topics that are not asked during the Congress.
Yes, but again, like sometimes even having that space, like for an open space, you need a large area with round tables, and that's even sometimes hard to have. But with some conferences, we are doing it. For example, next year, we have this client, it's the WIFPICS, which is something about children, pediatrics in ICU. And they are very conservative, but we've managed to convince them to create an open space, which is going to be at the exhibition floor during lunchtime. And then one of the days is going to be dedicated to families. So we're going to bring 3 families that speak about, that had very difficult situations with their children, and they are going to speak about how they felt with the doctors, and basically it's talking about communication and empathy and the relationship between patients and doctors. But it's hard. I mean, we've done already so many meetings just for this session, because it's hard to choose the topics and get the families. It's very sensitive. Also the format. One thing they have, doctors, is that they are so scientific. They want to plan everything up to the second. So it takes a lot of time, and that's why we're only doing this one change, which is not something outstanding, but for them is already a huge change. Yeah. Okay. Well, if you have any more questions, I'll be here. If not, then thank you so much for coming. I hope you learned something useful, and enjoy the rest of your day in Barcelona and IBTM. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Yeah.